Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream. We do have a special guest this evening to look forward to, but as usual before then, I'll just mention a few things coming up. Next week, we've got John William Noble, who's written a book recently about marriage, and he's going to come on and talk about that. That should be extremely interesting. The week after that, we've got an election special. We've got Meet the Candidates night. So I'm not going to appear for that, but Michael Willis, our chairman, is going to host that. And our candidates, a lot of our candidates are going to come on the screen very briefly and in 2 or 3 minutes explain to them about themselves, introduce themselves, and talk a little bit about their political interests and the family party policies that particularly appeal to them. On the regional list, we've got 40 candidates, 40, which is pretty impressive, I think. That's quite a lot. So it won't be all 40 of them in an hour, but it will be a fair few of them coming on to say hello. With regard to the standing in the election, we've been getting our paperwork sorted out this week. So I think hopefully every region submitted their paperwork now for the candidates to stand. Apart from Edinburgh, I'm going in tomorrow to the council offices to do that. Then we're all set. The die is cast and our candidates will be on the ballot paper. On Monday, our election campaign proper will start. In other words, our social media output will be geared towards the election very much. And there'll be other things going on as well. Another thing we're trying during the election, we've thought about this for a while, that maybe we're missing a trick in terms of having more daytime events. So we're going to have an event called the Election Forum on the 1st of April, an inauspicious date, in the morning as well, 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning. And that's going to be a Zoom meeting where you can just come in and chat about politics in general, family party issues. So the link for that will be publicized in the few days before. You'd be very welcome to come along. I mean, the live stream, you can put comments in, but with that, obviously, you'll be able to be speaking as well and entering into the debate. So that's 1st of April in the morning. That's the first time we're going to do that. If that goes well, we will continue with it. What have I been up to? I've been working on, I'm going to make a last couple of videos before we get into election campaign mode. In the election campaign, it'll be short, sharp videos all the way through. But there's just a couple of issues I want to look at before then. One is the incorporation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child into Scots law. That was just passed last week. I think you could make a case that maybe the Scottish Parliament has banned abortion by mistake. But we'll look at that in a video coming up. I mean, it's quite bizarre what's going on there. And also, I'm going to just do something about the organ donation situation. I think it's 2 days' time when the law comes in, and within 2 days' time, you don't become an organ donor, if you like. The government has decided that they have a right to take your organs for transplant, whether you've consented to that or not. So instead of opting into it, you're going to have to opt out of it, which we don't think is actually the right way around. Organ donation is a great thing. But there's some issues related to that as well I'll talk about. But it really should be up to the individual to opt in. Now, moving to this evening's guest. Over the last few months, we've been strengthening the national leadership team of the Scottish Family Party very significantly. We appointed Michael Willis as our new chairman. You met Michael a few weeks ago. We've also got Don Marshall, who is the deputy chairman. He's doing a great job in that role. So Michael and Don are working together on some projects there. But we also have appointed a new deputy leader. And our new deputy leader is our special guest tonight. So welcome to Phil Holden.
Hi.
Welcome, Phil. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
And so this evening is for you to share some of your thoughts, tell us a bit about yourself, give people an opportunity to get to know you. In the future, you'll have opportunities to meet Phil in person at various meetings around the country when we're allowed to do such things. But for this evening, Phil is going to have a chance to just share a bit about his past. Let's start with the recent past. How about this week, the last 3 days? What have we been up to?
Okay, you just bring up the slide thing. So on the weekend, I was trying to fix a pair of headphones that basically my headphones broke. One ear stopped working. So I was thinking, do I buy a soldering iron and try and fix it? Or do I buy a new pair of headphones? And I went for getting the soldering iron, and luckily, I was able to fix them, and they are actually working now. But it was kind of taking a gamble because I thought I might end up with a soldering iron I'd never use and a broken pair of headphones. Also, one of the sort of nice things about having children and being a dad is you get to do all the things that maybe you couldn't do when you were a child. And so we never had a skate park when I was younger, but I was able to take my daughter out to a skate park and have a go there. And that was great.
Could you just say at this point, my sons used to go to skate parks as well, but I never went anywhere near them. I never touched the concrete. So, which is why I've got no broken bones at the moment.
By far the oldest person there. And, I went on the tame slopes this time. There's one slope which is twice as steep, and I'm sort of eyeing it at the moment thinking, should I try it or not? So if I have a go at it, you might not see me in the election, but we'll see. And the other thing I'm doing is it's spring. I kind of love nature and biology and things like that. And so we've got a WhatsApp group in our neighborhood, and I just like, anyone got any frog spawn in their pond? Can we get some tadpoles? And my daughter's watching them kind of grow up over lockdown because we haven't got any other pets. But yeah.
Okay. How about further into the distant past? To tell us some things about yourself, things you've been involved in.
Yeah, so sort of, I guess in the distant past, I'm kind of, my life is somehow divided into two parts in one way, because when I grew up, I would probably describe myself as a sort of atheist agnostic. And when I went to university, I ended up arguing with the Christians who were in my flat and became a Christian. And so I'm somebody whose worldview has kind of undergone a 180-degree shift, and that means I can understand something of what it's like to be coming from both perspectives there. And I've always loved computers, and so when I grew up, I spent all my time in my youth programming computers. I always wanted to be a computer games programmer, and so I learned lots of skills in graphics, animation, and sound, and all these kind of things. And then I went to university, and the internet happened, and the skills you need for the internet were all these same kind of multimedia skills. And so I went down that route of just getting involved in the web. And since then, I've just been using the web in various different ways in my career. My first job was working in a company, or my second job was working in a company that made games for mobile phones. This was way back in 1999. And we were basically 10 years too early or something like that. The company went bust just as the iPhone was coming out. But we were making these kind of simple mobile phone games and things like that. I left that company, and I decided to, this is quite a long time before it went bust. I left and decided I wanted to do something a bit different. And some people from different churches were moving down onto a council scheme to do different kinds of youth work down there. So I moved down there with them, and we set up 3 different kind of youth clubs with all these very kind of interesting kids. And, it was really nice being down there. Through that, I ended up getting a job in the IT center down there. And that was really interesting, because this, IT center was the center of this community on this council scheme. I ended up living down there. So I lived in a council house for a period of 5 or 6 years, I think. And that allowed me to see a lot of the way that people are living, in those circumstances. And my salary was tiny as well, because I was working part-time, pretty much subsistence living and things like that. And one of the things that came up when we were down there was that they had this stock transfer, and this was the government, then Labour government, trying to sell off all the council housing to a private company. And they were selling the council houses for, I think it was something like £700 each. And the idea was the council didn't want to, pay for repairs on them, so they'd sell them to local people. They'd not sell them to local people. They'd sell them to these private organizations, and people from the local council would end up on these boards of these housing companies, awarding themselves huge salaries, and that housing stock would be lost to the country. And so there was a group there standing against it, and the council, their campaign was like millions of pounds. They had BBC presenters telling people why they should vote for this stock transfer. And so we spent our time kind of unpicking it, using the resources in the IT center and things like that. And one of the struggles we had on that campaign was that we worked out kind of exactly what was going on, but we didn't know how to get this message out to the people who could vote. And the problem was that a lot of the council housing stock had already been sold off. And so we didn't know which houses were council houses and which houses were privately owned. And so what happened was that Unison, they said that we can put flyers through everybody's doors, but we need to know which houses are council houses, and the council won't tell us. Like, we put in freedom of information requests, and they said, no, that's like private and personal information. We can't give that out. And I was like, I was praying about this, saying, God, you got to do something, you know. And I ended up bumping into somebody who was, he ran a newsletter. And I told him what was happening. And he was actually for stock transfer, but he'd just that week fallen out with the council. And he said, I could give you a list of all the addresses of all the council houses in Edinburgh. And so he gave us that list, and with like, you know, a couple of days to spare, we were able to get that out, and we won the campaign by, you know, I think it was 53%. So that was really something quite exciting for me, because I knew that I played a pivotal role in that campaign. You know, if I'd not been involved, it would have gone the other way. And that's maybe my first taste of sort of political involvement.
Just say some more about your experience of living in that sort of context. I mean, just to say, where are we? So 20 odd years, just over 20 years ago, I took a year off from working in a very prestigious you know, boys' boarding school. And I went up to study for a year, and I stayed with some friends in Sheffield. And those friends were part of a church that had deliberately set itself up in the poorest neighborhood of Sheffield. So these young people in their 20s, were going to the council office and saying, you know, we want a flat. I think it was called Park Hill. We want a flat in Park Hill. And the council officials would say, oh, no, don't worry about that. We've got some better ones for you. And they'd say, no, it's Park Hill we want to go to. So I went and stayed with one of these people in there. It was quite an experience. Even there, it was quite an experience. It was just for a year. I wasn't like massively involved in the community, but it was an eye opener. So what did you pick up there? What were your impressions and thoughts from being in that community?
The thing I loved being down there was that people are emotionally honest, and so sort of being from a sort of middle class background, you know, if people hate you, they're still very polite about it. They'll hate you in a very nice way with very nice words, you know. And if they like you, they'll be pretty private about that as well. And what was nice being around the kids in Dummy Dykes was, if they hated you, they would just tell you straight to your face with as many expletives as they could muster, you know. But when they liked you, they would do that with, you know, the same sort of gusto. And there was a sort of emotional honesty that was there that you don't normally get in, you know, more polite middle class society. I think you could sort of see the poverty trap in some ways there, which to some extent benefits have created. And my wife is Chinese, so you know, it's very interesting to contrast what happens in China and the attitude of Chinese people to what happens in the UK. So in China, you have no good benefit system at all, really, but you have very strong families. So it is the expectation of children, even though they're single children, that you will be looking after your parents when they get old. It's not that you'll be sending them to old people's homes or anything like that. And the children are raised with that expectation. So there's very strong sort of families, and there's because there's no safety net, people are told, if you do not work, then you will be poor. If you don't get a good education, then you'll amount to nothing in life. And there's this drivenness for people to sort of do the best they can, this very high view of education, and that nothing's going to be handed to them on a plate. And China has lifted a huge number of people out of poverty. Now, their work ethic is like way in the opposite direction to us. So like at the moment in China, people are working 996, 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. And, one of the sad things there is, like, one of my wife's friends at school, he basically dropped dead on the job just from working so hard. And then in Scotland, you see the opposite thing. Is like, we want to bring in basic income. We want to bring in the 4-day working week, benefits for everyone, printing free money and all this kind of stuff. And it takes away the incentive to work. And so when we were having work done on the flats in Dunby Dykes, they said, we're coming into your flat and we're doing this on your flat on this date. I said, well, I'm working on that date. Like, I can't just get holiday. I meant to book my holiday like so far in advance. And they just seemed like, it didn't register that people would be working. And yeah. And so
do you just respond to this one?
Yeah. No, like this was lots of them are very polite, and the people there was much more of a community. Like there's a newsletter and things like that was done by the people there. I never had any problems with really feeling unsafe down there. We knew all the kids, we knew the local people, and they treated us well.
That's quite interesting. Look, close to where I live is I live in Collington, which is right next to Wester Hales. Wester Hales is probably, on any indices of deprivation, is probably up there. I mean, a lot of it's been improved massively in the last few years. It's not unpleasant at all. But I often go for a walk or a run around there. I was going around, I think it was maybe last October or September, I mean, just in the evening through one section. And the number of people standing at the end of their drives and standing in the street chatting was unbelievable. Yeah. I just went through thinking, this is all right. I think there's probably a lot of people in Edinburgh who would actually find themselves much happier living in this community. All these people standing out chatting in the street as the sun was going down. Than they're doing
Dunby Dykes
is a
cul-de-sac in the middle of Edinburgh. And so it's so quiet there, that it's a very sort of peaceful place. You've got the crags right, in front of you. It's a very nice place to live, to be honest.
Yeah. So, I mean, but tell us about some other things you've been involved in.
So I can maybe say how I sort of met you. Well, so one of the projects I've been involved with in terms of programming is that I've been making an application, which is the idea of it is to allow people to sing stuff outside. So it's sort of aimed at churches, and it allows people to sing hymns outside. It's called a hymn sheet. And I'll just play a video which shows you what it is. Can you? Yeah.
There's no singing required, is there, from me?
No.
Right, stay viewing them, people.
Has this got sound?
The sound sign's not on it, so I don't think you click the thing when you share it.
I'm going to start that again. Okay. So, hang on. Let's see. I really should have done that for that tab. Okay, so I need to stop screen sharing. Share screen. That was very silly not to put the sound on. Okay, share. Okay. There we go.
Right, here we go.
Let's start by creating a songbook. I'll call this one Hymns. Now I'm going to add some songs. And I'll just paste the text in here. And then let's add a lot more songs. These songs are stored in an IndexedDB. This makes it really easy for us to do a full text search. Next, I'm going to share this songbook with the device I'm going to use as the controller when we go out to worship. And yes, that QR code was an IPFS hash. Next, I'm going to create a channel. And a channel is a group of people who see the same content at the same time. And you've guessed it, this is IPFS PubSub. And I want to share this channel with the people I'm hoping will come and worship with me. So this time I'm going to use the URL. I'm going to copy and paste it into an email and send it out to some friends and say, let's go up and worship on Colton Hill. There may be some bystanders who want to join in. So I'm going to print out a poster as well. And once they scan this, it'll drop them straight into the lyrics. So the idea of Hymn Sheet is that one phone or a handful of phones can control what a larger number of phones see on their screen, full screen. So this is me grabbing every device I can find and trying to get them to display the same lyrics at the same time. The laptop in the middle is controlling what the other screens see. But it's not just laptops and phones that have browsers. You're starting to find browsers embedded in TVs and also in smart projectors. And so this is a cheap battery-powered projector. And it's got Android inside of it, and that means it's got Chrome, and so it means I can use Hymn Sheet with that. What makes this especially interesting is that I can run this from a Wi-Fi hotspot on my phone, and so this means I can take this whole setup out on the street for hymn singing in the winter when it's dark in the evenings. This is me just leaving, going up to Colton Hill. Ready? Okay, cool.
Sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art!
So Hymn Sheet. So kind of one of the aims of this application is that you can use it in a sort of decentralized way, and so it enables people to see the same thing on their screen at the same time, whether that's a projector screen or a mobile phone screen. And in many countries, there's a lot of censorship, so people aren't able, and we're starting to see this a bit more in the UK and the US. And so the idea here was to create this like censorship resistant application that people can use in crowds to display the same thing on their screen at the same time. I've been inviting people to come out and use it. And one of the people that came out was Richard's wife. And I'd seen Richard's broadcasts on the Scottish Family Party. And I'd liked most of the things that he said. But I wasn't too sure about him. And I wasn't sure, like, on the subjects that he hadn't spoken on, if I'd agree with him or things like that, you know. And it was sort of meeting his wife and thinking, yeah, she's a fairly sound person. I guess Richard must be fairly sound too, you know. And
what were the things that you thought I might have thought?
Well, I think the thing is that sometimes I'll be watching somebody on YouTube, and I'll be agreeing with them, and then you suddenly turn up one of their videos and you think, actually, that's a bit racist, or that's it has crossed that line into sort of xenophobia or something like that, and so there might be issues that I want to stand on, and then somebody like crosses the line, and I think I don't really want to be associated with that, so it was sort of having a chat with her about the party, and then being able to speak to somebody rather than just hearing things online. It was able to answer those 2 or 3 questions that I might have had about where's the party coming from, what are they up to, what's underpinning.
That's interesting with that. I think there's quite a few YouTubers I watch, and I do think you're pitching this in a certain place, but I'm not sure you're saying everything that you think about things, and you're left with that. You're just left wondering. It's quite hard to reassure people about that.
And I think that's why it's important that we meet people, and as we're having these things in the daytime, these things people can actually speak to us in person, or are they live streams, or
it's a Zoom chat.
Yeah, a Zoom chat. So I'd say get involved with that, and that might help you to say, is this something I can campaign for? And so with the Scottish Family Party, it started as something like I was thinking, like, I'd like to do a talk on about why I decided to become a member of the Scottish Family Party, because after speaking with Richard's wife, I thought, I'm going to become a member of this party, and then it's like, I actually think I should stand for this party, And then there was a call for like, anyone want to take on deputy leader? I looked through the list of things. I can do about 75% of that. Okay, so I should probably stand. And so, that's how I got involved. And I really want to encourage people who are watching this live stream to get involved, because now we're in campaign season, and really, it's great if you vote for us, but if the people watching today are just the ones that vote for us, it will be a complete non-event. We really need every one of you who's watching to be campaigning, to be sharing our videos, to be forwarding them to like everyone that you know, and that's the way that we'll have an impact, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think armchair campaigning is a lot more powerful than people might think. Say just liking, sharing, even commenting on things. Like if you go onto a YouTube video and just write cabbage in a comment 6 times, YouTube thinks, oh, this video must be really interesting. I'm going to show it to more people. And it really does make a difference. So during the election campaign, as you're getting more and more frustrated listening to the other candidates and parties on the television, that's something you can really do that makes a difference. It is just support on social media. Say like, share, comment, whatever. It really does give things a boost. And effectively, it provides us with free advertising. We were going to be spending thousands and thousands of pounds on advertising on social media, but the impact of our supporters could be equally effective, I would say, during the course of the election campaign. So, I endorse that entirely. Right. So where are we heading next?
Maybe bring up the screen, and I'll do the next thing. Yeah. And so one of the things I've been working on is a series of short videos. I've only done 3 so far. And this is to try and explain the issues that we're standing on. And one of the things that I've found out about the YouTube algorithm, I hope this is true, is that they are prioritizing the portrait kind of landscape, the portrait format videos. And so they're trying to sort of take on, what's the Chinese platform? TikTok. Yeah. TikTok. So there are less of these videos, but they try and display them quite prominently. So you might get about 500 times more viewers of them. So I've been trying to make some videos in this format on some of the issues that we're standing on. And I'd really encourage you, once these come out, to watch them and rewatch them, because apparently the algorithm counts it like even more heavily the more you watch them.
So just to clarify, when we say rewatch, you don't actually have to be watching as long as you're.
Yeah, no, I would rewatch. They're quite fast as well. You probably have to watch them twice to hear what's happening in them. So these are not yet on YouTube, but I can give you a quick look at them.
Gay rights groups want politicians to ban gay conversion therapy. But what is it? According to the BBC, conversion therapy refers to any form of treatment or psychotherapy which aims to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, ranging from electric shock treatment to religious teaching and discussion. We're being told it's possible and safe to change our sex, yet it is impossible and dangerous to change our sexuality. Is this scientific? Sex is written on every cell in our body. No one has yet been able to change sex in a biologically functional way. However, a YouGov survey showed that 43% of 18 to 24-year-olds viewed themselves as neither exclusively heterosexual or homosexual, and so have some choice about the relationships they pursue. While the Scottish Family Party is certain electric shock treatment has no place here, we stand for freedom of speech, free open discussion on this topic with those affected from people on both sides should not risk prosecution.
I think that's so good, isn't it? It's brilliant. This is a whole new dimension to our YouTube channel, social media output in general, and that's a whole, like the animations, etc. So it's quite different than videos I do, and yeah, so it's great that we've got Phil able to do these. So,
and so the aim of these videos is that they're partly to equip you with arguments. So that's partly why I'd say rewatch them. It is so that you can sort of think about how to argue on these subjects. So these subjects have become quite taboo, which, and this is the case for me, like because I work and things like that. I've seen that in the media that people will say something, and it will mean that because they've spoken up on this subject, then the Twitter mobs start going after them. They start going to their employer and, trying to get them fired and all these kind of things. And so there's a natural instinct to just be sort of quiet on each of these subjects. And then what we see happening is that because, I've forgotten who it was who said, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing, and we're sort of seeing that happen within education, that the agenda which is being pursued there is something which, like vast segments of Scotland, is not going to agree is the right way to be going. And Richard, you did an opinion poll, didn't you, on the sex education? What was the result of that?
I mean, for the worst things, it was I forget the figures, but it was an overwhelming majority opposing the government sex education materials at the most extreme parts. Yeah, overwhelming majority against.
Yeah, hang on. So yeah, I mean, this subject of conversion therapy I found quite interesting, and I'm going to do another video on this, and this is sort of to do with what's happening in sex education, because I'm wondering if a ban on conversion therapy came in, would the government actually be guilty of it? And this is the kind of looking through the government's like sex education materials.
Section 28 prohibited the promotion of homosexuality. Gay rights campaigners fought to have this abolished. Hypocritically, these same groups are now pushing for a reverse law to be introduced that prohibits promotion of heterosexuality. This is the push to ban so-called conversion therapy. The definition of conversion therapy is so loose, it includes discussion, any attempt to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. This law is apparently needed to stop electric shock treatment and corrective rape. However, electric shock treatment for this purpose has not been used for decades in the UK, and rape is already illegal. These are straw men. In reality, this law would criminalize speech. A parent who tries to dissuade their child from taking hormone blockers. If it is legal to promote and celebrate lesbian, gay, and transgender identity, while it is criminal to promote heterosexual identity, this will surely result in more undecided young people being pushed to lesbian, gay, and trans identity than would have otherwise been the case.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't what I was expecting to happen, but this let me try this. Yeah, so this is the kind of sex education material which is being used in primary schools. So this is from some of the videos that Richard has done. So, you know, you can see it's pretty disgusting what it's saying. Like, aside from anything to do with sexuality, it's saying, like, you know, when a woman feels like having sex with her partner, her vulva and vagina might feel tingly and might feel wet or slippery to touch. Like, why in primary school do people need to know this, you know? And then it goes on kind of for men, and it says, you know, when people have sex, they might have an orgasm. For a woman, an orgasm is a special nice feeling in her body. For a man, if he has an orgasm called ejaculation, a white liquid called semen will come out of the hard penis, and this will feel nice. And so here they're sort of telling, you know, primary school children that, you know, for women, this is a nice feeling. And for men, this is a nice feeling. And that's going to lead to the place where children are saying, well, if it's nice, why don't we try and do what we're seeing in these pictures, you know? And this is something that when I was in England, you know, I went to a friend's house and they were saying that, you know, for one of their friends, they had a sleepover. And this was a parent, and they said that, you know, a primary school boy came over and said to his primary school son, why don't we try and sleep together to see if any of us are gay, you know? And this was just like out of what they'd been, I think, taught in school or something like that. And so, you know, my belief is that kids are impressionable, you know, that we looked at those tadpoles earlier, and like for frogs, you just lay your eggs and you disappear. You know, there's no nurture involved there. But for human beings, you know, you don't come of age until you're like 13, maybe in an Aboriginal culture. In Western culture, it's sort of 21, maybe about 30 now or something like that, with the problem of buying a house or something like that, you know. But, you know, human beings are actually made to be nurtured. We're made to be taught by our parents. We're made to be taught by our older people. And that influences who we become, and it influences what we do. You know, and this is kind of more of the kind of sex education material from the Scottish government. And so...
Some people want to be abstinent, that is, to not have sex until they find a partner they love. Others want to wait until they're older, maybe in high school or college.
So that clip there, you know, we were talking about primary school children. That clip there from like sex education in Scotland was saying that some people might want to wait until they're in high school. And that to me sounds pretty crazy, you know, that's the way that sex education is being thought of in Scotland. And this argument's being made that, like, not only is, you know, homosexual sex fine, but actually that it's better than heterosexual sex. And this is more material from like the Scottish government's RSHP resources.
Lesbians have around 12% more orgasms than straight women during sex, with 25% of gay women saying they climaxed with every sexual experience, and almost half saying they climaxed over 75% of the time. This may be related to the duration of sexual encounters, as lesbian couples report an average length of 30 to 45 minutes in comparison to the average 15 to 30 minutes by straight women. Penetration can stimulate the glandular organ known as the prostate. Though there's no published laboratory research, anecdotal evidence suggests that prostate orgasms are more powerful and pleasurable than penile-induced ones.
So they kind of start by saying, we've got no evidence for this, and then say, well, we're going to say anyway, you know, we think it's true, therefore it must be. And for me, this is the, promotion of homosexuality over heterosexuality, because you'd have the Pride Day saying that you should be proud to be homosexual, but you shouldn't be proud to be heterosexual. There'd be no sort of celebration of that or anything like that. You also have, as you go through the material, that I've not done an analysis based on time, but I would say probably 1/3 of the couples presented are heterosexual and 2/3 are homosexual. And so probably around 2/3 of the time in the sex education material, it's showing homosexual relationships. And this is basically because of the formula. We need to show a lesbian couple, a couple of gay men, and a straight couple. And so the formula is normally like present a gay couple first, a heterosexual couple, and then a lesbian couple. And so that's not really representative of society, where, I think it's like maybe in the census, is it about 2% which said that they were in homosexual relationships, and even sort of Stonewall would put that at somewhere around 5% or something like that they would think would be homosexual. And so you've got this kind of massive overrepresentation of sort of minority groups in the sexual health teachings, that's going into Scotland. And so my thought is that maybe they're guilty of what they're trying to.
That's an interesting line. I haven't really put those things together to that conclusion, but I think there's a pretty good case there. Now, if you look at the other side, so they're presenting those facts in that video as to why homosexual sex is better, basically. But the mountain of evidence about, for example, the problems related with homosexual relationships, instability, the various physical and mental health problems, etc., and all of those things are just completely taboo. I mean, I was not too long ago, I was sitting in front of the General Teaching Council of Scotland, being accused of raising these facts. And yet they're really important facts. I mean, the things they've got there, if they're facts at all, it's just trivia. It's prurient trivia. Whereas the really important facts about relationships that are going to affect a person's life decisions, a person's life decisions should be based on, they're completely absent. The thing with these things, though, it doesn't matter how strong your case is. If it actually came to, going to court, then these things are not judged fairly. I mean, everyone knows that the conversion therapy law would be a one-way street.
And the conversion therapy law, it covers both sexuality and the transgender kind of things as well. And so, at the end of one of those videos, I showed the case in Canada of the dad who had been arrested for trying to not acknowledging the sort of new gender of his child. He was put into jail for that. If you bring up the slides again. So, yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you bring up these things, is that, obviously you're accused of all the phobias, the homophobia, the transphobia, and, whatever else there is out there. And so this is an advert that the government has placed on Twitter. And this is basically saying, if you see somebody say something that you think might be transphobic, then please report them. Get this hate incident down there. And then they'll come out with these things saying that the number of hate incidents has risen. It's risen 20-fold, 30-fold, or whatever. But it's really just that they're advertising more to try and get people to, report these things. And the thing I find interesting about these, these phobias is that if you look on the NHS website and you look and you see what's the definition of phobia. And so I'm just bringing that up here. So it says let's just see if I can bump the font size up there. It says a phobia is an overwhelming and debilitating fear of an object, place, situation, feeling, or animal. Phobias are more pronounced than fears. They develop when a person has an exaggerated or unrealistic sense of danger about a situation or object. If a phobia becomes severe, a person may organize their life around avoiding the thing that's causing them anxiety, as well as restricting their day-to-day life. It can also cause a lot of distress. A phobia is a type of anxiety disorder. You may not experience any symptoms until you come into contact with the source of your phobia. But in some cases, even thinking about the source of your phobia can make a person feel anxious or panicky. This is known as anticipatory anxiety. Symptoms may include unsteadiness, dizziness, and lightheadedness, nausea, sweating, increased heart rate, palpitations, shortness of breath, trembling, shaking, an upset stomach. And so this isn't really, when I guess gay rights lobby groups talk about transphobia and homophobia, it's nothing to do with this kind of, medical phobia or the medical definition of phobia. It's more of a term that's used to say anyone who disagrees with us. And the way that you see this, like typically on the news, is it will say that maybe somebody who is transgender has been bullied and been beaten up and assaulted in a horrible way, or a lesbian couple has been attacked because they were holding hands on the street or something like that, and obviously that's something that, any kind of decent person would condemn and say that that's wrong. And it's also illegal as well. It's illegal to assault people. It's illegal to do these things. But then when they quote the statistic, that they'll have this feature about this attack which has happened, and then they bring out the statistics saying that the number of hate incidents has risen, giving the impression that all of these incidents are of that kind and not merely somebody saying something that somebody else disagreed with on Twitter. And I think there's also a sort of a double standard with this in terms of reporting. So if you take this kind of poster here, which says, like, has there been a hate crime? Please report your friends and family, kind of thing, and the BBC thinks nothing of that. But then when the BBC reports on China and what's going on in Hong Kong, they'll take a completely sort of different line. So here they're saying, like, Hong Kong, people invited to snitch on their neighbors, how terrible is this? What what's going on there? And they really don't realize that, this is what we're doing here, and then if you say any of these things, this is the risk that we have, is that you can get deplatformed. And this is interesting for me in technology because, even though I'm standing for election, a lot of the power is not in the parliament anymore. It's in technology companies. So if you think about, what happened in the US election, that those who supported Donald Trump and Trump himself have been kicked off of YouTube, Twitter. Parler was deplatformed from Amazon's AWS, the App Store, from Google Play Store, the Discord chat server chucked off, Republicans, and Twitch stopped them from streaming. They were kicked off Facebook, Reddit, Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest put in place restrictions. Shopify kicked them off. Stripe stopped taking payments, and TikTok as well stopped them. And there are currently attempts to take Fox News off the air and things like that. Now, don't necessarily appreciate all the things said on these platforms, or the news stations necessarily. But I think there is that right to freedom of speech, and we see the ability here of unelected groups to decide what can and what can't be said. And if you think about how we're going towards sort of self-driving cars and things like that, it means that Elon Musk will be able to decide, can I go and visit Richard or not? Is he the kind of person that I should be mixing with?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no, maybe so, or something like that, and so I think there's a need for parliaments to be ahead on technology, to see the things which are coming down the road, and to be able to sort of legislate in advance and not retrospectively in many of these areas. So I think it's in Poland that they've said for social media platforms that if you censor somebody and take a post off where somebody hasn't broken the law in what they've said, then you as a platform will get a huge fine. I can't remember if it's like millions of dollars or something like that, and that's a way of sort of protecting freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we've had an interesting time on social media. On YouTube, we've just had one video taken down, and that was about transgender education in schools. It was actually out of date in any case, but they took that down, that they refused an appeal. Apart from that, YouTube's been fine. Facebook, it's a bizarre story on Facebook. There's one YouTube video that if we posted it on Facebook once, and they said hate speech. Took it down. So I appealed, and they said, no, that's hate speech. It was about SMP indoctrination in schools. Yeah. And then later, I posted the same video by mistake. I'd forgotten they did it last time. Again, I posted the same YouTube video, hate speech, refused appeal. That was that. But here's the funny thing. That same video is on Facebook. It's posted as a Facebook video. So they're happy to host it themselves. But when you post it from YouTube, it becomes hate speech in some way. It's quite bizarre. Sometimes with Facebook, it's never happened to me, but some of the other admins, sometimes when they log on, they get scary messages about, warnings for, hateful content. And it's said to them that our Facebook page is not recommended to people either. And Twitter, I think Twitter were completely nobbled. We have actually gone through the 1,806 barrier recently, but for quite a while on Facebook, since this has been a big story about Twitter clamping down, I mean, we've been going nowhere on Twitter. It will go up a bit, and then it will just go down a bit, go up a bit, go down a bit. But maybe that's over now. Maybe we're back on the up. We'll see.
And this is the important thing for those who are wanting to sort of campaign on our behalf is please forward our videos. Do subscribe, hit the bell, do all of those things. But please email our videos to other people, links to them, things like that, to all your contacts or whatever, because we can't really trust the algorithms to work for us, and they're basically getting cleverer and cleverer at learning what content is in a video and whether they want to promote that view or not. So back on this kind of phobias thing, like this was another story that caught my eye recently. And so this is, so I'll say where this has come up recently. So this is from 2014. This is a motion to support sex workers by the Edinburgh University Students' Union. And so this is what they're calling for. EUSA will put out a statement calling for the decriminalization of sex work, will contact sex workers' rights organizations and sex worker open university and offer their support, will take a zero tolerance attitude towards horophobia and place horophobia in its safe space policy, will explore what support it can offer the university student sex workers, will condemn anti-sex worker campaigns at the universities. So, they're wanting to take away freedom of speech on there. They're inventing another phobia, horophobia. And this was, I think, put forward by 10 students. I'm not sure how it did in 2014, but it's come up more recently because Leicester University, and this is not the students' union, but the actual kind of main university, has come out with like this similar thing. Student sex workers must be supported by university staff. And what they're saying here is that, you know, that university staff mustn't try to dissuade people from sex work. It says that last year, a survey of more than 3,300 students by Save the Student website found that 1 in 25 had engaged in adult sex work of some kind, ranging from selling intimate photographs to offering full sex for money, up from about 50 in 2017. So in a very short space of time, you know, that's, I don't know how accurate these figures are, that's suggesting that the number of students involved in sex work has doubled. You know, so, you know, that you could see in another 4 years that it's doubled again, you know, and that would take you to sort of, what's that 1 in 25, it would be down to 1 in 12 or something like that, you know. And then the staff are meant to support this. And so the staff are getting their salary paid by the students who are paying the tuition fees. And they're meant to be encouraging their students who are involved in sex work. And that basically turns the university into a sort of brothel in some ways, because, you know, they're profiting from this enterprise of their students and supporting it. You know, for somebody who, you know, my wife is very keen for my daughter to go to university, and I'm like, can I really conscience that? You know, and so I think we need to see, you know, changes here. And then, you know, another thing that was happening at the same time was that Manchester University, you know, just before Mother's Day, was advising against the youth of the word mother and father. And so there's apparently no harm at all in sex work. But calling somebody mum or dad, you know, this could damage our students. They need to be protected from such terms as this. And this is really why, you know, I think if you care about these things, you have to stand in this season of the election. You have to stand up and make your voice heard. It's the only time that politicians ever really listen to the electorate, is the election season. It's the reason I'm standing, is that I think that the election is an opportunity to raise these issues in the nation, so that parents are aware of what's happening in schools and universities. You know, I'd really encourage you to take this opportunity, see the campaign materials that we're producing. We're not likely to get lots of time on the BBC or in the papers. You know, something might blow up and that might happen, but we can't count on that. The only people that can make that difference for us are the people that are kind of listening to us now, and, you know, the contacts that we ourselves have. And so, yeah, I'd encourage you to take your stand at this time.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think, as I say, the armchair campaigning can be very effective in lots of other ways as well. The election time is the time when people are most interested in politics. And we did a meme ages ago. Maybe we should revive it, where it said that some people go through the phase of, you know, they'll complain about what's going on in the Parliament for 4 years, saying, "Oh, it's just outrageous what's going on there. It's totally appalling. You know, moral degradation or whatever. It's just terrible." Then it comes to election day. Then they take away a day off from their complaining about how terrible it is, and then vote for the same parties again. And then for the day after election day, they get back into the business of, "Oh, this is really terrible. You know, something's got to change here." As Phil was saying, the election campaign is when people are most interested, and election day is when you've got most influence. That's when they really are bothered about the decisions you make, and that's when they really notice your view by the way that you vote. So that brings us to the end of our hour. So thanks, Phil. You've got to know Phil a little bit there. I'm sure maybe Phil will take some of these live streams on his own in the future. We shall see. So next week it's about marriage. The week after that we've got Meet the Candidates evening. But for now, thanks for all the comments. I'm sorry we didn't get to many of them tonight. But yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks to all of you watching later as well. So from Phil and I, that's good night.
Bye-bye.